welcome to Zaria.
Thank you.
I understand you are MacArthur's.
Yes, I work with MacArthur Foundation.
Not the MacArthur himself.
No. That one died 1978.
He is doing a beautiful job.
Thank you.
You are representing the MacArthur Foundation on this program.
Yes.
Please, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Kole Shetima. I'm the director of the MacArthur Foundation. I'm based in Abuja.
Director, that means you are in charge of the Nigerian Center.
Yes.
A brief about yourself, a brief about your biography.
So, yes, I'm Kole Shetima, as I said, introduce myself. Born in Machina in Yobe State, went to primary school there, went to secondary school, government community secondary school, Guru, went for my degree program at the University of Maiduguri, came to ABU Zaria for my master's degree, and then eventually I went for my PhD at the University of Toronto in Canada, taught there, and then went to the US, taught at the US, and then came back here in 1999 when I was given the responsibility of running this place. And since 1999, I think I've done a number of work. Here in Zaria, I think that we've done a lot of work. Probably we have given ABU up to like $8 to $9 million. A lot of, maybe we have trained about 200 to something PhD holders and master's degree holders. We established in fiber optics all the way from Shika to connect it to Tulum Wada. We have established a number of laboratories and libraries and other things. Professor Mustafa was one of the vice chancellors that we worked with. I believe we worked with about 4 vice chancellors during the course of the work that we've been doing here in Zaria. So that's yes.
The Almajiri seems to be one of your major areas. How did you venture into it?
So what really prompted us was the COVID-19 situation. You may recall that as a result of the COVID-19, many of these children who are found in many parts of the country, but especially those of them in northern Nigeria, the governors met and decided that they have to return them to their homes. So you found at that time, many of those children were, they were essentially arrested and put into some vehicles and then deported. Essentially, that's what happened. And then there were all these high infection rate among the Almajiri as well. And therefore, we thought that as a foundation that was concerned about what was happening under COVID, how can we help this vulnerable group of children who, as we know, are really children, some of them as young as 3 years, who have left their homes seeking for knowledge, but have been exposed to this pandemic. And that was how the foundation said, okay, what can we do in order to help and bring about change in that system?
Sir, the Almajiri system, as far as your research and other findings, is it really a good or a bad thing that everybody, every state, as you said, during COVID, have been trying to repatriate these kids to their own homes? Well,
first of all, every child has the right of childhood. Every child has the right of freedom of movement. Every child has the right of education and association and movement. So I think that these are basic rights that we should protect for every child, whether they are Almajiri or they are not Almajiri or whatever they are. I think that is critical and very important. But we also know that the Almajiri system as we know it today is not the same as what it used to be. We knew that at that time, I think that these children actually had very good access to education, had very good access to parental care, they had good access to shelter and other things. But what has now happened in so many ways is really an abdication of responsibility by various stakeholders in society. Parents have decided to abdicate the responsibility of bringing up their children. That's why as young as 3 years old, children are sent out to go and seek for knowledge, not in their own hometowns, but in very bad places. So parents have abdicated the responsibility. Society itself has abdicated responsibility, because at that time, even if you are a child and you are going to another place to go and study, you knew that there is somebody somewhere, there's a system that will take care of your education, that will keep you of your shelter, and your feeding and other things. So society itself has abdicated responsibility. Of course, the government itself has also abdicated responsibility, because at the end of the day, every child, at least in the Nigerian context, every child has right to education. It's an enshrined right in our constitution, and therefore we expect that government should take the responsibility of the minimum providing basic education for its own citizens. But that is not happening. So I think these violations of this right and these abdications of those responsibilities by different segments of the society is clearly an indication that we have to do more in terms of what can we do in order to ensure that all stakeholders in society take on those responsibilities, and how do we improve this Almajiri system so that children have right to education, they can go to education, they can stay in their own village and their homes, get this access to this education, but also get other forms of education that will enable them to become productive citizens of the country. But also, even within that Almajiri system, how can you create other opportunities so that people may go and study Quran, Hadith, and other things, but they also be able to go back to the formal educational system that we know, so that they can get their degrees, they can get their masters, they can get their PhDs, they can learn skills that they can use in order to take care of themselves, their society, and their families as well.
Sir, yes, society, including particularly parents, as you rightly said, abdicated their responsibility. They shy away from this responsibility. In a nutshell, what is the goal of MacArthur Foundation in Nigeria focusing on this Almajiri system of education?
So what we're hoping is, how can we transform this Almajiri system so that it becomes, becomes a more modernized system. That's why this conference, I think you can see that there are delegates that are coming from other parts of the world. And those parts of the world, they also have their own Almajiri system. But it's nowhere what we have here in Nigeria. So what are their own experiences? How are they able to formalize the Almajiri system so that it gets the attention of government, get the attention of the state, so that these children are not allowed to become so vulnerable, so that they are not recruited into banditry, they don't go into extremism, they do not become a cannon fodder that will create more problem for our society and other things. So I think that in the nutshell, our own goal and our hope is that we support the transformation of this system, just as it has happened in other parts of the world, so that it becomes a source of joy, it becomes a source of productivity for society, rather than what it has now become, whereby people see this as a source of many of the problems or the many allegations that are made against them.
So there is something that is happening. I don't know if your research or your partnering with different stakeholders, you are able to understand that when we talk about Almajiri system of education, one particular aspect of the, should I use the word Akida or sects, Islamic sects that are more pronounced, that is Tijaniya, Kadiriya, just this particular group, Izala, Sunni, other Akidas or sects, Islamic sects are not always brought in. My thinking is the Izala particularly have reformed their anti-Almajiri, have reformed and brought in Islamiyas. So they are seldom found, and all the partners in Almajiri have not been integrating them. Why is that so? If it is going to be a holistic something, we will not look at only the Rika Tijaniya or the Rika particularly and leave the other sector.
No, it is true that I think that if you look at the evolution of the Almajiri system, clearly I think that the Kadriyas and Tijaniyas and others, which as you also know, they are the oldest of the sects in northern Nigeria, in many parts of the world. The Izala people are more of a modern type of the groups that have developed, brotherhood that have developed within the Islamic system. And I think that you can see that those who have probably come later on, like Izalas, have been able to adapt to the new system. And that's why you find that they have been promoting the integration of formal education and the Islamia system and developing a formalized system of education, and I think they've done very well. But as you also know, that traditions die very difficult, are very hard, and people who are used to doing certain things, they tend to see that this is something that they want to continue because they think that that's what they have been doing in our thing. So I think the challenge then is how do we work with a number of the Islamic scholars, who are in Tijaniya, in Kadria, who also know what is happening in places like Senegal, where you have these movements and organizations, like in Morocco, where these movements, organizations are very prominent. In Mauritania, also movements are prominent. How in these countries were they able to arrange their own system to make it easier and possible to integrate Almajiri system into the formal education? So I think that kind of experience and knowledge sharing, I think is very important, so that we can take everyone on board and to ensure that this Almajiri system is transformed for everybody in our society.
CEDDERT is one of the most renowned research foundation or consortium in the northern Nigeria. And with partnering with CEDDERT, a lot has been done. But like I asked about the other sectors being integrated, these activities of MacArthur with CEDDERT have been regular, a lot of funding, as you said, across now countries are here. But because media is also excluded often, they are only invited to do coverages. A lot of your activities are not properly, to my thinking, broadcasted and given, making the media to a stakeholder, or rather the dissemination of these activities are not reaching the grassroots, parents, government, the stakeholders of the Almajiri system.
So you are right. MacArthur Foundation organization, really, we don't speak about what we do. I think the people that we give support to are the ones who speak about what we do. We are usually very shy about going and telling people we have been doing this, we have been doing that, we have been doing this. It's not really part of our tradition, our culture in the foundation to do that. So it's only when we support other people, they do that one, then they may be able to invite media organizations and other things. So that is true. But let me also say that MacArthur Foundation is one of the major organizations that support media in Nigeria. I believe that we may be supporting up to maybe 40 organizations in Nigeria. We support a number of the major radio stations and televisions online and others. For example, we support Daily Trust, we support The Cable, we support Sahara Reporters, we support Premium Times, we support Yerwa Online, we support Wiki Times in Bauchi, we support the BBC program itself in Hausa Service. So, but that is a program to support the media itself. It's not about explaining our work. If they decide to tell people what we do, that's Alhamdulillah. But we in as a foundation, this is really not our own tradition. It's not our tradition to go about and tell people what we do, but our work, we want our work to speak for itself. And I think that's why many people may not be necessarily aware of the kind of work that we do in our.
You've really given back to your alma mater. Let me ask the last question, sir, before we go. The CEDDERT have done so much. Is there any particular area that you see as gray area, or area you really, MacArthur, would want to see more amplified to integrate this system of Almajiri education to the mainstream educational system?
Well, certainly I think that we have to do more on that area, because I think we're still at the very beginning of that process. So how do we, for example, bring government into the conversation? Because at the end of the day, it's only government that can move this thing. Because government has the resources and political power to do that. So I think that I want to see more government involvement, but I want to see also more practical conversations. For example, how do we take people from, let's say, one state that has done this and bring them to another state so that they can see what is happening? Or how do we take somebody from Nigeria to go to Senegal or Mauritania or any of those places so that they can see what the Senegalese have done, what the Moroccans have done and other things. So I think that some form of practical experience sharing and knowledge, I think that will help, so that people are not just talking and people are just theorizing, but they can see the practical implementation of those kind of things.
Thank you very much, sir.
So thank you.